So many
Yeah.
women I have worked with describe feeling exhausted in a way that sleep alone doesn't seem to fix. They are functioning, they're showing up, they're doing everything that they're supposed to do. But internally, something feels depleted, disconnected, or emotionally heavy in a way that they can't always explain. And I think a lot of people experience this without fully understanding what's happening to them psychologically or physically. So I really wanted to have this conversation. Today, I'm speaking with Apoorv Vikas, a counseling psychologist, about emotional exhaustion, not just stress or tiredness, but as something much deeper that many people silently carry while continuing to function every day. A lot of work I am doing through Yusr yoga and nervous system regulation brings me into contact with women carrying emotional weight in their bodies without always having a language for it. Tight shoulders, shallow breath, difficulty slowing down, feeling emotionally disconnected while still continuing to move through life normally. And I felt it was important to bring a psychological perspective into this conversation as well. So, before we begin, I'd love for you to briefly share a little about the kind of work you do and what drew you towards this area of psychology.
Sure. First of all, let me introduce myself. I am Counselor Apoorv Vikas, counseling psychologist, and I thank Dr. Krupa to have initiated this venture where we are going to talk about this extremely important topic today. Let me inform about what I do. As a counseling psychologist, I provide psychological help to people of age 18 above to deal with their emotional management, thoughts management, belief system management. I have expertise in transaction analysis and rational emotive behavior therapy. So that means TA and RABT. Both these therapies focus on the belief systems and thought processes that may lead to certain dysfunction approaches, which may lead to emotional mismanagement. So, in simple words, if we think clearly, we can emote and feel healthily. That's where I come in the picture. I help people think clearly.
That
That's
is
all for today.
phenomenal. And from
Sure.
your work, what is emotional exhaustion really? Because I think many
Oh,
people assume that it means feeling tired or overwhelmed. But I think it's more than that, don't you?
sure. It's tiredness, it's exhaustion, but more importantly, it's basically disappointment. Now, I'm sure many people will find that word quite interesting, or some people may even frown upon it. But let me explain what I'm talking about. Why am I saying it's disappointment? Emotion is energy, and energy requires flow. Law of conservation of energy tells us that energy can't be created and can't be destroyed, but it can be converted from one form to another. It requires transformation. In case of emotional energy, it must be converted into healthy conversations where thoughts are exchanged, thoughts are discussed, and a consensus is arrived at where a person feels that they were heard, they were considered, they were accepted, they were acknowledged, they were appreciated, not invalidated, not discarded. It's humanity in function. And then those healthy conversations are supposed to lead to some creative, constructive effort and useful outcomes so that emotional release happens and the person feels better and the emotion has served its purpose. But that requires high emotional quotient across all people, that require circumstances that allow emotional discussions, that allow heavy discussions. Unfortunately, most people do not have access to such high EQ people and these healthy environments, due to which, unfortunately, that flow is seized, emotion is suppressed, discarded, invalidated. Right there, you will understand why I use the word disappointment. Emotion was
Good.
disappointed, the human was disappointed, the person was disappointed. And the worst part is that the suppression isn't the end of it. Suppression is the beginning of it, because even after suppression of all the pain, you are still supposed to function as a normal, functional human being. You are supposed to bring your kids to the school. You're supposed to cook and clean. And you're supposed to look after the household chores. And then you're supposed to look after your professional chores. That facade can't be maintained for long. So while that
Hmm.
woman or that person is disappointed, they are being forced to be normal. And that's where the exhaustion steps in. That's where the question is unanswered. That's where we don't get a closure. That's why don't get a function. The loop is still open.
Hmm.
And that's is what we call emotional exhaustion.
Wow, that is deep because I think this is the part that many women miss because they're still functioning externally, as you said. They are still
Exactly.
working,
Hmm.
caregiving, replying to messages, managing responsibilities, and they don't really realize that this emotional depletion is happening till the body starts reacting. So,
Okay.
is it possible for someone to be emotionally exhausted without consciously recognizing it? Like, how does it look like uh, to be someone who is functioning on the outside and having this within? Like, externally, how would it appear?
Dr. Krupa, in my opinion and as per my observation, I think this is what happens to literally 99% of people who are suffering from emotional exhaustion. Initially, it's subconscious. They are not consciously aware of it, but their body knows, their nervous system knows. It shows up in tiny little baby steps, such as the person wakes up, they get out of the bed, and they regret it right there. It feels like, oh my God, yet another day, yet another boring day. The
Oh,
goals are set in front of you, but your feet do not want to touch the ground. They want to remain in the bed. Then you haphazardly finish your bath. That's a
hmm,
very
hmm,
good
hmm.
example. Even I have sometimes personally felt it. You just want to run through all your chores and get into the saddle of the high functional modern person. And during that time, your shoulders are quite rigid. Your stomach doesn't want to accept the breakfast that you had.
Oh my
Your
God.
legs are still shaky. Your knees are sometimes shaky. And many people complain that it's just 8 a.m. in the morning and I already feel like the day should be over. And then their wristwatch or their boss tells us that no, sorry, you still have 10 hours left at least.
Absolutely.
And it hits you hard on your face. And then the rigidity in your skeletal structure, it actually goes on adding onto itself.
Hmm.
And you come back home and you realize that you are more exhausted than what you should have been. You even complain that maybe I didn't put in that much effort today. Maybe I didn't actually do anything special today. And I don't know why I'm feeling so exhausted.
Hmm. Hmm.
I shouldn't be feeling this much tired. There are other people out there who are more overworked than me. So why am I feeling so much of an exhaustion?
Hmm.
Well, as I said, it's this emotional exhaustion. It's psychosomatic. Psycho means mind, soma means body. So it's that disappointment, this that separation, that fatigue. It seeps into your structure.
Hmm.
One more thing important to understand here is, at the beginning phase of this conversation, I would like to state it out loud because it relates with what we discussed right now. Your brain's entire function is survival.
Absolutely. That is the primary
And
one.
when your brain realizes that your something basic like emotion isn't being validated, is
Hmm.
not being allowed to flow, then your brain perceives it as a threat to your emotional survival. And
Oh.
whenever you are in that defense zone,
Mm-hmm.
naturally, a defensive person cannot be open. They are always shielded, they are guarded.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
imagine you are carrying this invisible shield in your hands all day long. You can imagine what will happen to your shoulders and your back and your neck and your knees. That is what emotional exhaustion looks like on a physical form. It always looks like this person is carrying the burden of the entire world over their shoulders.
Wow. Because this is something that I have noticed in my classes, that people
Okay?
carry so much in their bodies without even realizing it. As you said, the tight shoulders, the shallow breath, the difficulty in slowing down. I am here taking Shavasana, and their eyes are constantly fluttering, they're not able to keep them shut. And even they have a lot of discomfort with stillness. I tell them to sit down and they are constantly fidgeting. So, from a psychological perspective, what
Yeah.
is actually happening that is causing these emotions to not be processed?
Okay.
Why is this
All
not
right.
being processed?
Sure. That's a beautiful question. There are two major aspects to it. As I
Hmm.
said, first, circumstances and the people around you simply don't allow that to happen. That is
Hmm.
one thing. And on the other hand, maybe the person himself or herself has been brought up since childhood with such mentality that emotional processing itself is a weak idea.
Oh.
Let's take a pause here and try to fully understand what I'm trying to point out.
Hmm.
You may be anywhere in the world. I have personally dealt with people from multiple different cultures and ethnicities.
Hmm.
And I have noticed one common thread among all people, especially in 21st century, that if you're emotional, you're perceived as a weak person. If you expect
Interesting.
emotional conversations, you are perceived as someone who cannot handle life.
Hmm.
So, it begins in childhood itself. It begins in school time itself. If you are crying, people don't ask you why you are crying. On the contrary, people assault you with words like crybaby. Then
True.
you are
That's
supposed
very
to
true.
just suppress it. And if you do not cry and if you keep fighting with
Hmm.
life, if you maintain that plain face and if you maintain that bravado, and if you act like you are a strong person, then people applaud it.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Hmm.
imagine this, that so much trauma, so much unanswered questions, so much unresolved stuff is there in your nervous system. Your brain keeps a log of everything that happens to you, and your system is carrying all of that baggage. And then, as a child, obviously, you try to adapt to this idea, you try to survive this idea because that's what children do. Yeah. And somewhere you also internalize this idea that yes, I am a crybaby and I should not be a crybaby and I should
Hmm.
suppress my emotions. So it's kind of like a duty that I always have to carry this shield with me.
Hmm.
So coming to the people that you're talking about in your yoga class, maybe many of these people are so habitual to carrying that shield all the time that they may not even fully know it. They may not even know that they are doing it to themselves, because
Oh.
it goes like this. Becomes like a second nature to them. It's like breathing.
Hmm.
It's like a soldier who is always carrying a rifle in his hand without even realizing it. Your fingers don't know how to hold a pen anymore because they are so much accustomed to carrying the heavy rifle. That's what happens to these people. Opening up feels strange to them.
Hmm. Hmm.
I guess we'll talk about it later. But I think you get my gist here. That is what is actually happening. And of course, it is sad. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, it is very interesting because many people come to yoga expecting relaxation.
Yeah.
And I have noticed that when this body has started to slow down, emotions surface up. So
Okay.
it's surprising when they're doing a forward fold and there are tears that are rolling down
Hmm.
their face. There is the
Hmm.
restlessness that I spoke about. There is
Hmm.
immense resistance. I am guiding them into something and they don't
Hmm.
want to follow what I'm trying to tell them to do.
Yeah.
And I feel it in their body language, in the way they look at me, as well as the
Yeah.
urge to leave the moment. They
Hmm.
feel like escaping the room. They're constantly looking at the door. So when I
Yeah.
think about this, I
Hmm.
find it very surprising
Hmm.
that why do why does this happen? And why does
Okay.
slowing down feel
Yeah.
first uncomfortable and
Hmm.
then safe? So this
Yeah. All
discomfort,
right.
what is it?
Okay. As per transactional analysis, we say that a person is always carrying at least two ego states in their mind. Ego states mean the roles that we play
Mm-hmm.
at that time, at that place. One is the child ego state, and one is the adult ego state.
Hmm.
When you, as a yoga professional, you help these people find their release. Let's first try to understand and fully acknowledge that they are not habitual to it. As I said, they are not at all comfortable with the idea of putting the shield down,
Hmm.
because as per their survival strategy, the shield must always be up.
Hmm.
So, first and foremost, that child in them who has taught himself or herself to be that adult, that child is bewildered,
Hmm.
feels unsafe, feels that we are stepping out of our script. We are stepping into the unknown territory now.
Stepping out of
And
the
nature
script.
has, yeah, and nature has programmed us in such ways that anything that's unknown, the unknown territory must be scary. We
Hmm.
must be apprehensive. We must stay away from it.
Absolutely.
That's why that child is looking at the exit, because that child, from your point of view, you are trying to help that child, you know. But imagine if in a different context, suppose
Hmm.
if that child has been abused by someone in their childhood, and now as a helper you're trying to offer them a chocolate, they will relate you with the abuser, because that's what happened to them in the first place. And so all the warning bells start ringing, and the child wants to run away from you. Now, this 30-year-old, 35-year-old, 40-year-old child in front of you in your yoga class, that child also reacts to it in the exact same fashion that, okay, this is uncomfortable. I want to run away from it.
Hmm.
That's why initially it's uncomfortable. But later, not later, I would say simultaneously, the adult in them is also realizing one thing, that, hey, wait,
Hmm.
this is not scary. On the contrary, this is what we always wanted.
Wow.
Nobody ever gave us this opportunity. This is what we have always been looking for. Because, as I said, disappointment. No matter how much of a survival strategist you put in front of you, the disappointment is still there that nobody ever acknowledged my emotions, but this lady is acknowledging my emotions. So, this is the safe space that I always wanted. So, then the adult starts realizing it that maybe the child is overreacting, maybe we shouldn't run away, maybe we should stay. And that's why eventually they find their safe space. Some of them may even cry. You may have even noticed it.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
that cry, it confuses us. But this is the reason, because imagine this, you are not healing them at present.
Hmm.
You are healing them since the very first time they were told to suppress their emotions. You are not healing one person, you are healing an entire existence of a huge past and the current present. You are healing an entire metaphysical entity that wanted that healing for such a long period of time that now they are finally getting it and they are grateful to it. Although the process is scary in the beginning, but it also helping them to realize it, and
Hmm.
the cry is a very natural reaction to it.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I think conversations like this help people finally put the words to what they have
Yeah.
been feeling for a
Hmm.
long, long time. Many
Okay.
people recognize emotional exhaustion once it is explained, but they still don't really know how emotional regulation or an
Hmm.
emotional release should actually
Hmm.
feel like. So, from
Yeah.
your perspective,
Hmm.
what begins to change when they are
Hmm.
no longer carrying this rifle?
Hmm.
When they're no
Yeah.
longer carrying everything emotionally
Hmm.
alone?
Hmm.
What happens?
Hmm. Yeah. The very first thing that happens to them is the exact same feeling you get when your mother hugs you. The very
Relief.
first feeling that you get when your lover hugs you, the very first feeling that you get that you are the only one in your house and you do no longer have to pretend anything and you can just be yourself. Now imagine being that much okay in the presence of the other person. That's the moment when, as Morpheus says in the movie The Matrix, he is beginning to believe. That person
Beautiful.
is beginning to believe. That person is beginning to realize that safe spaces are possible. This is not a myth. It's not a magic. This is happening to me in reality. Okay. So it's not euphoria. It's not, it may not even be happiness. It is that feeling of contentedness, that fulfillment, that okayness, that peace, that maybe it's all right if I just focus on this one present moment here and now and not connect with any past or any future. That's when they are just alive in the present moment. That's when growth starts happening. And then once that phase is over, once they accept the safety, once they accept the security, then they start liking the idea of vulnerability. This is what I also personally notice in my counseling sessions.
Absolutely.
In the first session, once they realize that this is their safe space, then in the subsequent sessions, they look forward to those sessions because they realize I like being this much vulnerable.
Hmm.
It's like going on a date with a person that you have liked. You start looking forward to that space. In this case, in our case as professionals, they like the atmosphere we have created because they realize there is no judgment here. There is no
100%.
verdict here. There is no criticism here. There are no unsolicited advices here. Nobody is rushing to tell me what to do. I am allowed to be imperfect. I am allowed to be vulnerable. I am allowed to be open. I am allowed to be emotionally naked, and it will always be there.
Hmm.
So that's when the most important thing happens is that they allow themselves to take a pause.
Hmm.
And within that pause, they find the seeds of introspection. And then the third phase comes where they start liking the introspection. They become curious now.
That
First
is.
was safety. Second was being okay, being vulnerable. And the third was curiosity.
Hmm.
Curiosity about, okay, what else is there within me? What else remains? What else still needs to be healed? What else is waiting for me to unlock? Because then they start realizing that this is advantageous, it's
Yes.
profitable. I'm noticing things that I haven't noticed before. I can go and apply those things. I'm getting results. So it's like whatever I was looking for out there in the world, it's within me. And I only need my permission to bring it out in the open. And they start trusting you. And as professionals, it's our biggest achievement, I would say, if we could win somebody's trust.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. But as you told about the shift
yeah,
from you first feeling safe to all the way to curious about yourself, even I noticed
yeah.
certain very subtle shifts in the body. Like, for example,
Okay.
the breath deepens naturally, and the
Yeah.
body suddenly stops bracing itself constantly. And
Okay.
also, rest also starts feeling less threatening. Like, they are able to feel a sense of restfulness. And also, there is the creation of more internal space where emotions
Yeah.
can be placed. What do you
Yeah.
think?
Of course, you are right in that case because, see, during such sessions, during such emotional releases, you as a professional and that person as your client or your counselee, within you, you are creating a space. Okay.
Yes.
And that space is basically infinite because that space is like a huge giant white canvas
Hmm.
and we can paint it the way we want. It goes like this that the person has all the colors, all the paints. You are the painter, or I would say you are the opener of the paint tubes.
Mm-hmm.
And then once that allowance is there from both sides, the picture paints itself on the canvas.
Beautiful. Beautiful. What a visual. What a visual.
Yeah. Yeah. Person is one space and your
Hmm.
interpersonal space is another space, and from that personal space we are bringing colors into this canvas, and now you're painting the new personality that you both want that person to become, a personality that's healthier, stronger, better, more integrated.
True, but somewhere I feel it's about feeling safe to return to yourself. Like, yes, you are
Hmm.
creating something different from what was
Hmm.
earlier because you were more guarded before.
Yeah.
But now you
Hmm.
are feeling safe
Hmm.
as you are. And like you're not creating something completely different. What do you think about
Hmm.
that?
Hmm. I will put it in a bit different fashion.
Sure.
Of course, you are returning to yourself, but you are returning to yourself with a different purpose in mind. Imagine this that previously, maybe you discarded yourself as just a layperson,
Mm.
let's say. And now you are coming back with this knowledge that you were never just a layperson, you were the engineer, you were the architect, you
Yes.
were the designer. You don't have to discard yourself, and you do not need somebody else's permission to do so.
Mm.
You only need that allowance from yourself. You always had all the paints, you always had all the colors. It's just that you needed a healthy canvas and a permission to unlock
Open the
your
page.
paint tubes. Yeah.
Wow, that is beautiful. So, well,
Thank
without
you.
oversimplifying healing, like a quick fix, what do you think genuinely helps as the first step for someone who recognizes themselves in this conversation?
Well, if you recognize yourself in this conversation, then the immediate next step from me or Dr. Krupa or anybody in our position should be to verbalize it.
Hmm,
That yes, if you acknowledge, we acknowledge, and we are here. Let's do this. This
absolutely.
is what we call contracting in our profession,
Hmm.
where if we have both realized what is happening and what needs to happen, then let's verbalize it. Let's be on the same page and let's decide that this is what we are going to do from now onwards. Yes, this is your safe space. That verbalization is very much required because that creates the assurance which is very much required that okay, you have been heard, you have heard us talking, and we are here to listen to you from now onwards. So
Absolutely.
that suspense is there. So let's begin. That's the very first thing. Okay, I would say acknowledgement.
Hmm.
And I personally always make a point of telling people that you will never be judged, you will never be criticized. I'm simply here to help you out. Whatever you share with me, it stays between us.
Absolutely.
This is cozy, this is private, this is confidential. So you do not have to be afraid of anything. You don't even have to censor yourself. Whatever
Hmm.
you say, I'm not here to judge right and wrong. I'm here to help you out. So please be open with me.
Okay, so
And I will tell
some,
you from my own personal experience that
sure.
simply verbalizing this itself
Hmm.
is like opening the tap on a dam. Once you open that tap,
Beautiful.
you don't have to do anything immediately. People are just waiting for somebody to tell them this. And once they notice your authenticity, everything starts flowing out.
Hmm.
And in the wake of that flow, we as professionals get ingredients to construct what that person wants.
Beautiful. So I think that this conversation matters because it reminds people that functioning isn't always the same thing as feeling okay. And that is what we are trying to do here. That first step isn't about fixing yourself, it is understanding what you have been carrying for all this while. And if you verbalize it, we will be able to find our way through it, right?
Precisely, precisely. Most people, or even most professionals, many professionals have this tendency that to just focus on, okay, now what? Where do we take this forward? But first, we both need to check have we fully understood what is so that we can figure out what can be.
Beautiful. Kya baat.
Yeah,
That is very beautiful. So thank
yeah.
you so much for your time, your energy, and for sharing your expertise so thoughtfully in this conversation. I truly think discussing like this will help people feel more understood, less alone, and more open to seeking the support when they need it.
Absolutely. And I am also grateful to you for creating this platform where we could have this beautiful conversation. It was a happy experience for me as well to verbalize these thoughts. And I surely hope people who are watching this, people who are listening to this, they come forward and they get the help that they deserve and they become the people that they deserve to be. All that is to all of us.
Because they matter.